What's up, Brian Tong here, and this is Microsoft's Surface Go 2. And you know, this is really a sweet mid-sized tablet PC. It's a 2-in-1 that can pretty much do everything you want while being really portable. I mean, you can tell, right? I can just take it right here if I want to. And there's just been a whole lot of improvements that Microsoft's made from the original Go, and now that they have the Surface Go 2, I would say it's just a really polished device. And I've had a lot of fun using it. The body is really what you'd expect from a Surface tablet with that modern, edgy, and angular design with its built-in stand that is great both on a table and in your lap. And you'll still find the micro SD card slot right here, right under the stand for expansion, and they're really committed to the magnetic connector on the power adapter, which I absolutely love. And the new Surface Go 2 is exactly the same size as the original Go. All the changes are really inside, and they pretty much listen to everyone's #1 request, and you can see it right away. You are now getting less bezel and a bigger screen at 10.5 inches compared to the previous model's 10-inch screen. And that extra screen real estate for a tablet at this size already just makes a big difference. Now, the Surface Go 2 starts at $399 for the entry-level Intel Pentium Gold processor with 4 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of eMMC storage. The configuration that Microsoft sent to me, though, for this review really steps it up. It's a maxed out one. It has their Intel Core M3 processor that gives it a little extra boost in speed, but nothing that will make this like a multimedia workhorse. And they say that you're going to be getting a 64% bump in CPU power, which helps, but again, this isn't made to be a powerhouse. Now, this review unit here also has 128 gigs of solid-state storage. That's going to be a little faster as well, plus LTE Advanced for a price of $729. It's $100 cheaper if you go for just the Wi-Fi model, and I'm happy to tell you that this thing is bringing Wi-Fi 6, so it's ready for the future, and it also has Bluetooth 5.0. You're also getting better battery life, and this Go 2 gets roughly 10 hours of battery with normal day use, you know, surfing the web, watching some videos, really not pushing it that hard. That's not what I did, and I think this thing is really for what? Surfing the web, emails, word processing. I downloaded some Xbox cross-platform games. You know, I had to get a little Streets of Rage 4 in there. Come on, you know it's cool. But Microsoft has also put a bigger battery inside and made software improvements to optimize it. They wouldn't give us a number of hours comparison to the previous Surface Go, but they did say you'll get about 20% more juice doing the same things. The team made a point to mention how their own Edge browser is optimized to be more battery efficient and just doesn't chew up nearly as much battery life compared to, let's say, something like Google Chrome does on their own system, so it's just something to consider. Plus, you have the Go 2. It also makes some improvements like dual studio mics. There's 2 holes right up at the top here that you can see. That's for clear, better sounding audio. It's going to come in handy for video conferencing. And when you talk about that, you know how much I complain about modern devices with 720p webcams. Now, the Go 2 brings a 5-megapixel front-facing camera with 1080p video. That's right, I said it, 1080p. Thank you, Microsoft. You know that's such a huge bugaboo for me. Plus, when you open up with a type cover, I'm going to close it here, it now has instant on for the first time. And then you combine that with its speedy Windows Hello. This is probably the fastest tablet to get you to your main screen right out of the bat. And then the rear camera here, it's an 8-megapixel rear autofocus camera that also shoots 1080p video. So yes, the rear camera isn't as good as the competition, but I think with tablets, for me, you're going to be using that front-facing camera a whole lot more for productivity. I think that's probably more important than the rear one. Now, there's a lot to like here in this super portable form factor, you know, that can be used for media consumption and for real work. I think there's really no tablet 2-in-1 that's as productive as the Surface line. It's just always been that way because it can still be a real PC and then run pretty much all your PC apps. So I would absolutely say it's still king there. But then there's always things it can do to be better. The Surface line still needs to improve when you want to use it as a standalone tablet. And I think a big part of that is the fact that they don't have all the app support that Apple's App Store or even Google Play has, right? Developers just haven't flocked here in the same way. Surface can run almost every desktop app, but they don't have every tablet app. On the flip side, you could say, oh, well, Apple has almost every tablet app, but they don't have every desktop app. And even having a game like Fortnite, for me, it took me a few hoops to jump through to install it. I didn't even get to install it because it takes up over 80 gigs of storage when I got to that point. This Go 2 comes with 128 gigs of storage, so you'll probably need to add some expansion to it. I was able to install things like Xbox cross-platform games like Cuphead and the new Streets of Rage 2 beat 'em up I talked about earlier, but This isn't really supposed to be a gaming machine. You can play games on it, but you're probably gonna have to allocate your space for that. It just really depends on what you're prioritizing here and what ecosystem matters to you. The other drawback for me is that, look, I'm used to working on larger portable devices just because I do a lot of video editing. It's like my main machine. This is not a knock on the Go 2 because the display is not an issue for me here, but the form factor is just smaller, so you're not gonna get that full-size keyboard. The size and the layout of the type cover feels just a little too squished in and cramped for my liking whenever I use it. I've used the Surface Pro line and I really enjoy its full-size keyboard, but if I'm using the Surface Go 2 like day-to-day for work, I'm probably gonna be picking out an external keyboard and mouse if it's gonna be my primary productivity device, because the portability here, I mean, look, I fold it up, it's great. There are plenty of people who are gonna be just fine with its size, so it does really kind of come down to personal preference. Now, the other thing to consider here, the two true competitors in this space are the Microsoft Surface line and Apple's iPad. At the $399 starting price point and let's say, right, a 10.5 inch screen size, you're really looking at the regular iPad for comparison. So let's just break down comparable models for both Microsoft and Apple and their pricing. Now, the Go 2 model, again, that I have, this is a maxed out model. So here's the specs from it earlier: a Core M3 processor, 8 gigs of RAM, and 128 gigs of solid storage with LTE. That's gonna cost you $729. Now, Apple's standard 10.2 inch iPad with 128 gigs of storage and LTE retails for $170 less at $559. Big difference there. Now, the Surface Go 2 type cover ranges from $99 to $129 depending on the color. It is backlit. Apple Smart Keyboard is $159 without backlit keys. Now, you also have both the Apple Pencil and Surface Pen that are retailing for $99. So if you add that all up, fully accessorized, the Go 2 will be anywhere from $110 to $140 more expensive. That's dependent on the type cover color you go for. The Surface Go 2 is absolutely more versatile, but it's worth mentioning just how it matches up with its biggest competitor, and you're gonna decide what's more valuable to you. Because the Go 2, for me, it's the best mid-range two-in-one device if you're looking for portability and productivity in this price range and size. And the way you use these devices and the ecosystem, it's always gonna guide your decision, but the Go 2 has made all the important improvements it needed to. It's just this impressive little device, and Microsoft Surface Go 2 is a tablet PC that you can absolutely make your go-to. Get it? Okay.